I keep saying that Western civilization is on its knees with a knife at its own neck, and you don't have to look much farther than France to see that. Do you know what France is looking to do? France is looking to suspend its rights to keep them safe, an emergency measure to keep them safe on the heels of the Paris attacks. Now, this would mean that people can't gather, that people have checks and they're searched without warrants, kind of like in the United States, actually. This means that they are going to, the president is using a 1950 something law to go ahead and say, all right, in order to keep us safe, we're going to suspend the Constitution. Now, can you not hear Obama in the future saying all civilized nations in the world, in order to fight my ISILs, are doing this? Western civilization is on its, and you know who's in on it, I think? I got to tell you who I think's in on it is the Republican Congress. And it makes me wonder, do you know that the year-end budget that Paul Ryan and others want to set forward funds Obama's every whim? It funds Obama's every whim. I just saw a headline as the Syrian refugees are coming into the United States that one is already missing in Louisiana. A refugee is gone missing in Indiana. Now, somebody on Twitter made a good point. Somebody on Twitter said this: the same government who promises to, the same government who gave the Boston bombers welfare, the same government who allowed the 9/11 terrorists to overstay their visas, they say, we've got 100,000 Syrian refugees vetted, they're cool in the gang, bring them on in, red carpet treatment. Listen, if there's one thing that I'm sure of, there's a lot of things I'm not sure of. I don't know why this stuff is happening, but here's what I'm sure of, and you should be too, that our government, Obama and Congress, is treating Syrian refugees and illegal aliens better than they're treating American citizens and especially veterans. Would you agree with that? American citizens and veterans are being treated second best to Syrian refugees and illegal aliens. Do you know that Obama just greeted his dreamers? He just greeted his dreamers in Spanish. Obama's been working on Spanish. Can you imagine his Spanish with his with that stupid cadence of his that I cannot stand? Forgive me, but I can't stand Obama's cadence. That's why I always make fun of it. Bernie, you shouldn't make fun of the president. Well, I do. Okay, you're better than that. Somebody on Twitter told me that yesterday. Bernie, and you know what they were talking about? He was talking about, because I deferred a question about the Constitution to Chris Ann Hall, and this guy who's a lawyer, he said, Bernie, you should not be deferring to kooks like Chris Ann Hall. You're smarter than they are, and you're better than that. To which I said, first of all, I'm not better than that. Okay? Second of all, I'm not smarter than she is. I'm not smarter than anybody in this conversation. I read a lot. I know who to ask the right questions to. Ask the right questions to. And then I said, by the way, she's my friend. She is an incredible scholar of the Constitution, and you just overstepped your bounds. So, don't do that again. All right? Don't go there. As a matter of fact, I was more disappointed than anything because I was enjoying the back and forth. I always learned so much from Chris Ann Hall when somebody issues a challenge about the Constitution that I don't know the answer to. So anyway, it was an interesting thing. But first of all, I'm not better, okay? So I will stoop to making fun of the president. I will, and if I could have done Bush, I'd have done Bush. But I'll tell you this, the same government that allowed the 9/11 terrorists to overstay their visas and the same government that gave the Boston bombers welfare says, don't worry, we got the Syrian refugees covered. Nobody believes that. You don't believe it. I don't believe it. Nobody within earshot believes that the Syrian refugees have been vetted properly. And as a matter of fact, that's part of it. I'm starting to think that this whole Syrian refugee Bolshevik is a deflection, a major deflection. To what? I'm not sure. But I will tell you this, that this should have been the story of the year, but of course, you probably haven't even heard about it. Here's what should have been the story of the year. Are you ready? For 8 or 9 months, Obama lied about the national debt. And what is the national debt? Remember what the national debt is. The national debt is the amount of, it's like the government's version of back taxes that they owe us. If you ever talk about the national debt to somebody, they're not going to care. They're going to go, oh, the national debt, national schmet. They don't care. But if you explain to them that that's the amount of money the government has stolen from you, that's the amount of money that the government owes you in back taxes. What does the federal government do to you if you owe back taxes? Do they say, don't worry about it? Do they say, well, we'll just vote for somebody better? It should be the same thing. We should do the same thing to the government that they would do to us. That's what the national debt is. So Obama froze it. He froze it at 18 trillion and 18.2 trillion. And then when the Republican Congress said no more debt ceiling, because we don't want to keep doing this fight all the time. We don't want to be blamed for a government shutdown. So they gave a blank checkbook to Barack Obama and said, you no longer have a debt ceiling. Nothing is there to constrain you. That's what they did. The Republicans gave him a blank check, removed the ceiling, and said, have at it. Do what you want to. That's what they did. And guess what happened the very next day? This is what should have been the story of the year. Do you know what happened the very next day? Who knows? The national debt jumped $339 billion, which is galloping toward $500 billion in a day. In a day, it jumped to $339 billion. Boom, almost $500 billion in a day. That's historic. You talk about historic, right? That's historic. That should have been the story of the year, but people don't know. $339 billion. Well, we've been spending a lot of money. Yeah, basically the federal government is borrowing $1 million a minute. The federal government is borrowing $1 million a minute. And they're going to lecture us on fiscal responsibility? Are you kidding me? That is sort of like Roseanne Barr teaching us how to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. For Obama or the Congress to lecture you and me on fiscal responsibility would be the same thing. We would be just as dumb if we said, I really need to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Let's have Roseanne Barr teach it. Or it would be this dumb. This is how dumb it would be. It would be like saying, okay, let's get Miley Cyrus to teach our daughters about modesty. It would be about the same thing as that. That is how crazy insane it is for us to listen to Congress or Barack Obama lecture us on fiscal responsibility. Am I right or wrong? Can I get an amen? So here's what we've established. And I don't care if you're the biggest Obama supporter in the world. You know what I'm saying is true. Yeah. Or it would be like Charlie Sheen teaching us about safe sex. That's exactly right on Periscope. By the way, if you're not watching on Periscope, you're missing out. And if you're on Fox 28 watching the show, you can catch the show live every day now from at 1 o'clock Central Time. And if you download the Periscope app on your phone, it's awesome. It's a live broadcast app, and you can communicate with me in real time. You can also watch it on YouTube Live. And YouTube Live is up and running, finally, in the new digs here. We're still kind of fleshing out this side, but you should see in front of me. It's like NASA. I mean, there are screens all around. I'll bet you we could take off if we really tried to in here. I wouldn't know which buttons to push, but I guarantee you Jeremy would. I have a question for you, and I want to open up the phone lines too. And this is a real question for you. Who do you think is worse? Barack Obama, our president, our so-called president, and I call him a so-called president because presidents can't do the things that he does. So So if you think he's a president and you get mad at me for calling him a so-called president, I'm actually calling him more than what you're calling him. So don't get mad at me. People who love Obama, I don't know why you're mad at me, because I say Obama is more than a president, okay? He does what he wants to. He does any old thing. And what the reason I ask who's worse is because Congress lets him. Congress lets him do any old thing. He is a nightmare, but I'm telling you, I think Congress is worse. Because the left has always wanted to do these things, but we always had a Republican response to it. And not that the Republicans were always right, but at least there was a response. There used to be Republicans and Democrats. Now there are only insiders and outsiders. And I'll give you more proof. Oh my God, there's so much here for you. The new Speaker of the House, okay? The new Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, he's also saying we need legal status. We need to bring illegal aliens out of the shadows. Our immigration system is broken. At the same time, Obama is greeting his dreamers in Spanish. Now, you think about some of the things that have happened in America. Okay, I want you to think about this. Obama created a whole new class of people. Who are they? Who knows who they are? A whole new class. Dreamers. All right? Let it be written, let it be done. We've got dreamers. Okay? Now, and that's why he's a so-called president. Because presidents cannot do that. A president can no more create a new class of people and call them dreamers than he could create a new class of people and call them flying purple people eaters, okay? As a matter of fact, I would argue that there is more precedent, tradition, and history to have purple people eaters designated as their own group of people with new rights bestowed on them. All right, these purple people eaters are every bit as American as you and me, except for papers. That's what he said about dreamers. Okay, that's what he said about dreamers. So he creates a new class of people, and then the Republicans validate it. Now they say they don't. Barack Obama is trying to do this, trying to do that. But when you are funding him, as a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. Okay, you might be tired of this example, but it's an important example because my question is who's worse, the president or Congress? And I'm going to say Congress is worse because I expect this from Obama. I don't expect this from Paul Ryan. I don't expect it from from D.C. lobbyist Steve Sutherland, who's the former congressman that I had. Steve Sutherland's the former congressman I had, and he believed in dreamers. Obama said there were dreamers, and he wanted to take those people, specifically those people, and put them in the U.S. military. Now, Steve Sutherland got unelected, and now he's a lobbyist in D.C. He's a vice president for a lobbying firm in D.C. That's where people go when they're done with Congress. You go from patriot to congressman to lobbyist. The story of Steve Sutherland, the story of Alan Boyd, and the story of those before him. That's kind of the progression of things. God, it's so sickening. But the Republicans, they wanted to take the very people Obama deemed dreamers, and he wanted to take them and put them in the military. They want to give them legal status so they can get full-time jobs because Americans can no longer get full-time jobs because of the burden of Obamacare. Obamacare has made it too painful and too expensive, hasn't it, for businesses to hire Americans full-time, but it doesn't apply to Obama's dreamers and to the Congress's dreamers, to Sutherland's dreamers, to Paul Ryan's dreamers, to Mitch McConnell's dreamers, to Barack Obama's dreamers. They have more in common with each other than they have in common with you and me. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself, look at your representative. Your representative is either in Washington as a representative or used to be a representative and is now a lobbyist. Isn't that crazy? So I'm looking at the Syrian refugee insanity, and we all know it's insane. And there is what I call political theater. Paul Ryan and the governors have gotten together and they've said, okay, guys, this is going to be our play. We're going to say no Syrian rebels in our state, or refugees in our state. Okay, that's safe. We can all agree that's safe. We can all say that, because Republicans now do that, you know. They have a little plan, you know. That's why they all say, well, we got to get them out of the shadows. You know, the only people who need to come out of the shadows are the politicians, particularly the Republicans in Congress. You need to come out of the shadows. Jeb Bush, you need to come out of the shadows. And by the way, if you don't know this, Matt Gaetz, the current representative running for the seat currently held by his father, Don Corleone Gates, he's term limiting out. Matt Gaetz has raised already almost $1 million for that seat. Could you imagine $1 million for a state Senate seat? Would you agree that somebody wants Matt Gaetz in that seat real bad, like Disney and all the big companies? Somebody asked me about Democrats and Republicans recently, and I tweeted about it. And by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's just at Burnie Thompson, Burnie. But here's one thing about living in America, and tell me if you agree with me. Living in America has made it easier to tell who people are, right? People have classified themselves easier. It's much easier than it used to be. And here's what we've learned. See, Democrats used to hate when you called them socialists, okay? Now they love Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders says, here's what Democrats say. Don't call me a socialist, right? Bernie Sanders comes along and says, I'm a socialist. All crazy, right? And then the Democrats say, we love Bernie Sanders. And so now there's outright brazen socialists walking around with their little red book, you know. Who knows what the little red book is? You got to know what the little red book is, the Great Leap Forward with Mao. Now we have a great leap forward in the United States of America. And it's not the United States. That's not accurate. And one of the things I want to do is I want to bring accurate language. It is the United States, singular, of America. That's where we live. And if you think I'm joking, I invite you to, you know what I need to do? I need to get a phone designated for Democrats. And when you pick up, it should be one of those old phones, right? When you pick it up, all you hear is a dial tone, because I don't hear from them. I see snarky responses from them oftentimes, but I don't really hear any discussion from them. Do you? It should be a pink phone, and it should have a dial tone. You know what? I'm going to get it. It's going to be a new prop. Somebody remind me to do this. Wouldn't that be great? Every time I need a Democrat's response, just ping, you know, with a pink phone. Now, one of the things we've learned in America is it's easier to tell who people are. It's not as hard as it used to be. And here's what I've figured out. Democrats love socialism, and Republicans love cronyism. Am I right or wrong? Democrats they heart socialism. And Republicans, they really love cronyism. But they don't call it cronyism. Republicans call it public-private partnerships. That's what my new state representative does. He's a young guy. He does what he's told. He's 25. His name is Jay Trumbull. And Jay Trumbull, he talks about public-private partnerships. He won office a year ago. And do you know what it's a 2-year term. Do you know what he promised? Manufacturing jobs. And he also promised high-tech jobs. And guess what we don't have? High-tech jobs or manufacturing jobs, because it was all Bolshevik. And they knew it was, but I don't want to get back into that right now. But public-private partnerships, that's cronyism by another name. Republicans have fallen in love with it, and Democrats have embraced socialism. They snuggle with socialism. You talk about, Obama talked about how Americans cling to their Bibles and their guns as though that's a bad thing. Democrats snuggle and spoon socialism now. They do. They snuggle and spoon socialism now. And I'm telling you, Republicans, at least Democrats know it. Republicans, they don't really know. They think it's public-private partnerships. I'm not kidding you. All right, listen to this. Obama has said, he said in the his speech about the Paris attacks. Now, I'm not kidding you, okay? What I'm about to tell you is what the president's position is. And Democrats love it and Republicans don't give a flip about it. Obama has said that he's not interested in some notion of America winning or some notion of American leadership. He's not interested in that. To which I say, that's pretty damn obvious. Okay, and I clean that up, by the way, because I want to rip it. I want to let loose on this one. The president's not interested in some notion of America winning or American leadership. Instead, what he wants to do is bring everybody together. And that's not true. And you know that's not true. I'll tell you what's becoming more and more obvious in America as well is that Democrats truly, and you would think that Americans would come together on this. As bad as Congress is, Republican Congress, as bad as Congress is, and as bad as Obama is, putting refugees and illegal aliens above Americans, and in particular above veterans, you would think black Americans and white Americans could come together on this one, but no, Democrats won't do it because Democrats hate Republicans more than they love America. Am I right or wrong? Can I get an amen on that one? That's unbelievable. And I'm going to tell you something else. If we lift our gaze, which I like to do, G-A-Z-E, if we lift our G-A-Z-E and we look ahead, okay? 5 years ago, Republicans did not promote bringing illegal aliens out of the shadows. They did not promote amnesty, okay? Now they do. So if I lift my gaze and I look forward, I can imagine in a few years, hell, probably months, the way this crowd's going, I can imagine Republicans saying, look, we just need to bring the Syrian refugees out of the shadows. And we got to give them a new name. What name could we give them? Because refugees, you know, you don't have to live like a refugee, right? We should bring in Tom Petty on this. We should bring in Tom Petty instead of illegal aliens, right? In America, we give new words, right? We have dreamers, right? And which reminds me of Kermit the Frog, right? We have lovers, dreamers, and me. We have Syrian refugees, dreamers, and me, and the government doesn't really care about me. I mean, they do when it comes to taking. We're resources. Give us your money so we can take care of the refugees and the dreamers. So let's do this. So we're late on the game. Hopers, I like it. So that was really good there. Let's do that. So we've got the dreamers and the hopers, right? The dreamers, this is good stuff, Daryl, and the hopers. And then citizen sounds too good. So instead of citizen, we're going to be RGUs. You know, but they like to do that stuff. So revenue, citizens are now revenue generating units. Now I got to give a hat tip to Daryl Day on that one because that's his thing. Revenue generating units. So you and I are RGUs, and Syrian rebels are now hopers, and illegal aliens are dreamers. Is everybody straight on this now? And you know your pecking order, right? You know the order of the whole thing now. Does everybody got this straight? I don't know why. I do know why. What am I talking about? Don't know why. I do know why. I do know why Americans won't come together. Black Americans, white Americans, all Americans are more, you talk about snuggling and spooning, they are clinging to their partisanship. They're clinging to their political party. And if you listen to the president and you listen to the Congress now, everything is about, we've got to stop hating and we've got to start loving, right? And the Republicans are the problem. It's not ISIS. ISIS is not the problem. Republicans are the problem. Now, this is something that used to keep me up at night, but no longer because I figured it out. This is one of the best things I'm going to give you that you'll ever hear. Say, that's pretty bold. Trust me. I used to ask, why did Democrats used to hate the Patriot Act and now they love the Patriot Act? Who can tell me? I figured it out. Democrats used to hate the Patriot Act because they thought George Bush was going to use it on foreign terrorists. And Democrats did not want to spy on foreign terrorists. Democrats wanted to give foreign terrorists the best legal counsel possible and bring them into New York. So Democrats didn't want to do that. But now that the Democrats have the guillotine, the Patriot Act, now that they have the Patriot Act, they love it. Why do they love it? Because they think Obama will use it against America's real enemies, Republicans. I figured that one out. Now, you tell me where I'm wrong on this. Democrats used to hate the Patriot Act when they thought it was going to be used against Islamic jihadists. They love the Patriot Act when they think it could be used against Americans' true enemies, the GOP. That's how much Democrats hate Republicans. And I told you, the only hatred I've ever seen that has been this close is maybe the Palestinians and how they hate the Israelis. That's about neck and neck. And I said before, if you imagine like a horse race, and you've got the Palestinians' hatred of the Jews, and you've got the Democrats' hatred of the Republicans, and they're behind the starting gate, and boom, they're off, and they're running down, and they're coming around the corner. I'm telling you, right now, Democrats would be like Secretariat. Whoom, and he would just take off, and the announcer would say, the Democrats are moving like a tremendous machine, and the Democrats would win by 31 lengths. The Democrats would beat the Republicans. The Democrats would beat the Palestinians by 31 lengths in their hatred of Republicans more than the Palestinians hate Israelis. Am I right or wrong? That will help you understand why Democrats, especially black Democrats, love being put now. Boop, and they got to get tired. They must be getting tired of being dropped down a few notches, put in their place. As long as you put me in the place, as long as it's Obama putting me in my place, then I'm cool with it. So now you have to get underneath the Hopers. The Hopers, of course, are the Syrian refugees. So Democrat voters now don't care. Okay, as long as we treat illegal aliens better than citizens, as long as we treat Syrians better than we treat Americans, as long as Republicans are upset, Democrats are happy. That's just the truth. As long as Republicans are upset, Democrats are happy. That is another hallmark of America. And people are worried about it. I'm worried about it. Are you? I'll tell you what I am. Worn out is what I am. But and I'm going to call it the sand is out of the hourglass. The hourglass. One day I'll show you the hourglass. The sand's out of the hourglass. So will you join me again right here tomorrow, 1 o'clock, myfreedomradio.com. If you haven't done it yet, please go to YouTube and hit subscribe if you haven't done it yet. I don't think we had too many people yesterday. And you just make that noise with your lips. Hit the little red. It's free. It's My Freedom Radio on YouTube. Will you hit subscribe on that for me? And let everybody know that we'll be doing this every day at 1 o'clock. And we're getting everything more set up. I'm starting to know which buttons to push. Ford girl, I'm pushing the right buttons. If I push the wrong buttons, God help me. I don't know what's going to happen in here. But this side here, we're going to clean up, make nice. Look at that. It's nice. That side over there, man, you should see this stuff around here. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I'll see you tomorrow right here. Thanks so much for being with me.